You don't want to be a big, fluffy Michelin man. If you're trying to put on muscle and your body fat is too high, you're gonna make a mistake. If you're trying to go into a growth phase and your body fat is way too high, your body's going to respond in a way that you don't want. So I get guys coming to me all the time because they want to build muscle, and that is their primary goal. What they don't realize is that the body fat, the belly that they're carrying around, is only gonna make it so that when you put yourself in a surplus, which is required to gain any sort of mass, that your body's going to preferentially partition those nutrients towards fat accumulation. Can you build muscle? Yes, you still can, but you're gonna build a ton of fat at the same time. So what you need to do first, I call this the priming phase, okay? This is essentially improving insulin sensitivity, putting yourself on a diet into a deficit, and get to a leaner state. That's where you need to start your growth mode. Get lean first, get jacked second. Can you do both at the same time? Maybe if you're on gear or if you're a newbie, but most of the time it doesn't work very well. The second phase, I call it push. And in this phase is when you transition, you recover out of the deficit that you were in. You can't just increase your calories overnight. That's a recipe for extreme fat gain. Once you've gotten to the point where your metabolic capacity has come up and you can tolerate a surplus without gaining body fat, then you can go into your dedicated growth mode. And I call this phase power. This is the phase where you have very concentrated, structured training. And from a food standpoint, don't eat excessive amounts of protein. It's only gonna fill you up. It is the most satiating macro. So it's important to get enough protein, and enough would be about 1 gram per pound of body weight. You can go a little bit under, but if you're trying to grow, I would stick it to about 1. But if you're trying to grow, I would stick to about 1 gram per pound. You gotta get the minimum amounts of fats. You gotta get the minimum amounts of fats, which is about 20% of your intake. You do need that, you can't omit them. You may even be able to get all that from your protein sources, from meat. And then the rest of the calories need to come from carbs. If you're afraid of carbs, you're never gonna grow. So once you've built the mass, then you gotta reveal it. And I call this phase polish. So this phase is for basically uncovering and revealing the mass that you've built, because oftentimes when you put yourself into a surplus, there is some collateral damage and you do gain some body fat. So going through this phase at the end, it does help restore insulin sensitivity and you start to see more separation and definition. And that's the whole point, isn't it? You don't want to be a big fluffy Michelin man. Refine that mass and you will love how you look. Now, when you're going through these cutting phases, cardio needs to be involved. And actually, I'm a fan of having cardio throughout growth phases as well. There are some benefits to it. Obviously, you get the cardiovascular benefits, the cardiovascular strength, which we need. It can also help with hunger. If you have a hard time getting the food down, which I always did when I was in the growth mode, doing some cardio can actually help spike ghrelin levels, and you'll be able to eat the food that you need to.